A continued happy holidays to all the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast listeners out there. We are back for Monday's Boxing Day episode where we are finishing our breakdown of every division across the NHL, and we arrive at the Atlantic today, a division near and dear to both Steele and I's hearts. We're breaking down the biggest fantasy beasts and busts, odds to win the division, and predictions. Let's get right to it, people. Thank you for joining us.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey heads, degenerate gamblers, and fantasy fanatics, welcome back to your show. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, alongside my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, holding it down for y'all Monday through Friday, even throughout this busy holiday season. You can find us across all platforms you find your podcasts. And thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We see y'all. We are almost at that 700 subscriber mark, Steele. So let's keep pushing and feeding the people the fantasy content that I hope they need. And I just got to say, this is the season for being grateful and joyous. And I am grateful, Steele, to be able to come on this show every day and do what we do together, talking about fantasy hockey, bets, and the world of NHL in general. It's a privilege, and I'm grateful to continue our discussion today on the Atlantic Division. We arrive at the Atlantic Division after we've broken down the Pacific, the Central, and of course the Metro. You can check out those episodes on our YouTube channel and all platforms you get your podcasts. But let's get to it, Steele. The Ottawa Senators in 8th spot. We're going through the beasts, the busts. Let's start with these Senators, who have been a very interesting team, and not for the reasons we expected.
Yeah, you and I both expected this team to be a lot better and, be a true competitor in the Atlantic Division. Obviously, a couple of injuries really put a step back in their plans for this upcoming season. But nonetheless, I've seen a bunch of quality players really step up, especially guys that they added in the offseason, DeBrincat and Giroux. Nonetheless, Ottawa Senators 14-16-3 record right now for 31 points on the season. I think the top six is exactly what we expect out of them, to be that forefront runner top six in the NHL right now. Even though the record doesn't show success, the top six has been successful this season with all the guys that we just mentioned, including their captain Tkachuk and the young player as well in Tim Stützle. I think Thomas Chabot's been great on the back end as well. For me, it's really been the rookies that I guess would be the busts of the season so far.
Interesting.
They've been not like full on bust.
Disappointment.
They've been streaky. They've been very streaky, which has been a disappointment. Like Shane Pinto started the season off awesome.
Yeah.
I think he had 7 points, maybe 10 points in his first 10 games or something like that. He's only up to 17 points on the season right now. Really slowed down after the month of October. Same with Sanderson. He's been better than Pinto for me. 13 points on the season, really added some offense to his game as well. But again, just been very streaky with those two rookies for the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I'm looking more at the busts on the Anton Forsberg angle. I expected a lot more out of him this year with an opportunity he had heading into the season. We knew Cam Talbot coming in. That was putting some pressure on him after the year. Now it's hard to say after seeing what Matt Murray has done this season. But after the offseason last year, you were feeling pretty comfortable with the Talbot-Forsberg tandem splitting time, if not favoring, Forsberg a little bit after what he did last year for the Sens. But he's been a disappointment for me. 5-8-2, 3.24 goals against, and a .905 save percentage. Look, this team is interesting to me, Steele, because when I look at these numbers just a little bit, fourth best power play, sixth in shots per game at 33.5, and they also are great in the faceoff dot. Usually they're fourth best in the NHL. Usually you combine those things, and that's a lot more success for a team. I think it's been some of these key injuries. They've been finding new ways to lose at some point, really giving away these games to certain teams. I've seen inconsistencies at both ends of the ice for these Ottawa Senators. Tough for me because you and I talked them up at length. but they deserve to be where they are right now. Can they figure it out? The numbers indicate they're going to get better, Steele, but let's see what happens. Josh Norris coming back in the new year. That will be huge if he can get there. How about these Montreal Canadiens? What are you seeing from them? 7th place, 33 points.
Well, this is exactly where I had them, maybe even last in the division when we made our predictions of this Atlantic division back in September. I actually had Montreal in dead last, but this is pretty close to dead last at this point. 15-15-3 on the season, 33 points. This is exactly where I saw this team heading. They were obviously going to be led by those two young guys, Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield, leading the way for them. I've seen a lot of potential and upside to the addition of Sean Monahan when he is in the lineup as well. I believe 17 points in 25 games. Not bad for Monahan with his new team, but just overall bad depth players right now. Josh Anderson, Mike Hoffman, all those guys. I know they have a couple of injuries to their lineup as well. The goaltending is not the same without Carey Price, Jake Allen, and Sam Montembeault trying to do their best to squeak out wins as much as possible for their club. But nonetheless, they just don't have a ton of talent up front. That's the bottom case here.
Good start by Kirby Dach. He's cooled up and down a little bit from Nick Suzuki as well, even though he has 31 points in 33 games. I think you haven't even seen the best from him. And I think a little bit has to do with that. Maybe that he's feeling that pressure of being a captain. I can't put a single chirp in the column of Nick Suzuki. I just think that's how good he is, that he can be even better. Josh Anderson for me is the biggest bust for sure. This guy is making a ton of money. 11 points so far at that contract is not nearly good enough. Some intriguing pieces on this blue line though, and Caden Gooley, and also why am I drawing a blank now? I was just looking at it like both of these D-men. Arbor Xhaka has been a revelation this year for them on the
Mr. Wi-Fi.
the grit grinder side of things. But the Montreal Canadiens sit 30th in shots per game, 27th in goals per game, and they're also the second most penalized team, 30th in penalty minutes against per game. All of those things add up to not being a good team. And sometimes, Steele, this offense just looks anemic. It's not good enough to prop up the blue line that they have. Good young pieces coming. Suzuki, Caufield at 19 goals. There are some very interesting pieces that you can like fantasy-wise. Juraj Slafkovsky with 10 points. They're coming. Montreal's not going to be bad for very long because they're now building a very nice from-the-ground-up type team. No goaltenders, but there is a lot still to be desired in La Belle Provence this season. Let's see what happens the rest of the year, though, Steele, because my eyes are on Cole Caufield for 40 goals because I came out here and said I think he's going to get it. And right now it's looking not too bad. He's going to have to stay hot, but let's see what happens. You want to talk about these Florida Panthers or what?
Yeah, let's talk about the disappointing Florida Panthers right now. 15-15-4 record on the season for 34 points. And for me, it's their top forward and their top defenseman who have been the biggest bust so far this season. Even though he has a ton of points, Barkov just isn't scoring enough goals. He only has 6 goals on the season. And to be honest, they're still getting a ton of production from the other forwards. Verhaeghe's playing great. He's over 16 goals.
Underrated.
Underrated Verhaeghe. Tkachuk is leading the way. A stellar season with the new club.
Yes.
Montour was a big highlight as well when Ekblad was absent with injury. So for me, the biggest disappointments have to be Barkov for not scoring enough goals, and Ekblad just for not being a great defenseman. Mm-hmm. He's minus 14 right now on the season. Yeah. He missed some time. He does have 14 points. A little bit less production offensively, but nonetheless, those have been my biggest busts. And at the same time, I still haven't seen great hockey from either Spencer Knight or Sergei Bobrovsky. Those two goalies I thought would be a lot better, especially Knight once he did get the okay to go and be the starting goaltender. Hasn't been good enough.
Hey, right here at my bus list is Sergei Bobrovsky. And while what you're saying holds true for sure, I can't even chirp it. The balance attack that this team had last season, they were rolling 3 lines. That third line that they had with Lundell, Marchment, and, they rolled in Bennett and others. That's how they were really rolling teams. And then they come into the playoffs last season, Steele, and they look like another team. They shake it up a little bit in the offseason. They bring in Tkachuk. He is obviously the fantasy beast of this team. Offensively, a lot to like with this group.
Yeah.
First in shots on goal per game, 10th overall in goals per game. It's the defense and the goaltending that's been letting this group down. Bobrovsky at the head of that issue. 7-10-1, 3.25 goals against and an 895. Guys making 10 plus million. I don't care how old he is. He should be a lot better. Spencer Knight has not been able to take that opportunity away from him, Steele. And the Florida Panthers are in trouble because this top of this division is the toast of it, and the Maple Leafs and Boston Bruins aren't going anywhere the way that they're playing. So that means it's the third spot maybe up for grabs, but Tampa's going to have it, and a few teams left on the outside looking in, and I can see it coming now. This Florida Panthers team better figure it out in a hurry.
Look, I had the Florida Panthers finishing third in this Atlantic division. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. We also made the bad decision of having the Bruins missing the playoffs, and we'll get to that.
That was a really bad one.
That was the worst take I think we've had since we started the podcast. They really just took off like lightning at the beginning of the season. But yeah, Florida Panthers have not been good enough. They need to score. Their captain, Barkov, needs to start scoring some more goals. But a team that doesn't need to be scoring more goals, the Buffalo Sabres. They're scoring goals at will right now.
They are, Steele, and I'm excited to talk about them.
16-14-2 record. Obviously, been an up and down season to this point. Some losing streaks, some big winning streaks. They're 34 points on the season as of right now. And for me, the clear beasts have to be Tage Thompson and Rasmus Dahlin. Without those two guys, they're absolutely nowhere. They're at the bottom of the league, bottom of the division. And really, Tage Thompson has taken his skill level and his compete level to a completely different level than we've seen from the past year. And again, he's entered the top 10 players in the NHL for me after the season he's been putting up this year. But really great to see. It's also great to see Jeff Skinner succeeding again. I really liked watching him when he was with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's dealt with a couple of really bad concussions throughout his career, had two really bad seasons with the Sabres in his second and third year, but really great to see him get back and scoring at a high level again. And I really do think that these Buffalo Sabres are one or two pieces away from being a legitimate threat in this Atlantic division, more specifically targeting a true starting goaltender, not someone who's 41 years old.
The Buffalo Sabres lead the league for goals scored in 126 over teams like the Oilers, Bruins, Knights, Rangers, Penguins, and a whole bunch of other really good offensive teams. You got to keep an eye out for these Buffalo Sabres. And if you don't remember, a bunch of months back, Steele and I jumped on here right at the beginning of the season when we started doing things last February. And we said, take a look at all these peripheral pieces on the Buffalo Sabres. Alex Tuck as well getting it done. Jack Quinn, Dylan Cousins. Not just the players on the top line. The Buffalo Sabres are a really impressive offensive team. And I think what's really helped them get there this year is the emergence of Rasmus Dahlin. He is now looking like the player that was drafted tops of the draft. He is really stepped up both ends of his game. We're going to the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to get to the top four teams in this league, in this division, fantasy busts, fantasy beasts. But let me hit you with a very quick second about Athletic Greens, a product Steele and I use all the time before and after the gym. It's AG1 from Athletic Greens. What is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and other delicious ingredients to help you start your day right. This special blend of natural ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy levels, helps you recover, helps you focus, and helps you age with grace. All of the things that you want. As I use it before and after the gym, like I said, no chemicals, no GMOs, 0 grams of sugar. I don't go to the gym all the time, but when I do, AG1 is in my bottle, just like Steele. And right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with daily, convenient nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do, head to athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. That is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and all the support and hope everyone's having a happy holidays this December. Let's get back to the conversation. Atlantic Division, Detroit Red Wings in 4th place right now in that division. 14-11-7 record for 35 points. And Flip, I have a feeling I know who your beast of the team is going to be. And I'm going to say his name right now, Ville Husso. It has to be Ville Husso because without him, the team is not in this position right now.
I have Ville Husso there, and I actually have a slash through it because not a slash through it as a mistake, but two players. Dylan Larkin has also been very good. The captain, 12 goals, 19 assists. He's been getting it done. He's looking more and more comfortable. But yeah, I really do think Ville Husso has been the anchor. I just had to throw that honorable mention to the Capitan. They are the 4th least penalized team in the league. They keep it neat and tidy. I love that about teams. But they need to get better on special teams. 22nd best power play and a 17th in the penalty kill rank. I think this team is just getting there. With Ville Husso in the cage, though, Steele, they can be a tough team to play against. 12-6-5 this season. He has 3 shutouts. That's tied for the most in the league. 912 save percentage. He's been the beast, but I think you and I can both agree, the bust. And I know he's young. I know he's been playing good hockey overall, and he's had some more points lately. Moritz Seider has been a fantasy bust so far, especially after what you saw from him last year, 2 goals, 10 assists, Steele. Am I saying he's a bust? No. Has he been a fantasy bust so far? 100%.
Yeah, he's on my bust list as well. I also threw Andrew Kopp on here. Don't think he's been good enough as one of those additions in the offseason.
He was getting there too, and then he went cold.
He went cold again. Started off the season real bad, but I also threw Tyler Bertuzzi on the bust list. Man just cannot stay healthy for the life of him.
That's a factor.
It's a factor. He only has four points in the 9 games that he's played, but also to go on to the fact of Beast, who's been a great addition, Dominique Kubalik. And again, that just goes to show a player that can succeed once changing to a new scenery and to a new franchise. Kubalik has been a very underrated pickup for my fantasy team personally. So got to shout out Kubalik for having a great season with his new club. We'll see what the Red Wings can do. Also, Nedeljkovic has been a very bad backup. That's a big reason why they're not more in points right now. For me, speaking of bad backups, let's go over the Tampa Bay Lightning with Brian Elliott. Lightning.
What? Whoa! Have you checked out his record this year? I think he's 8-1.
I don't give a no. He's not. He's not 8-1. He's still a bad backup.
He was. I seriously think he was like 7-1 before losing the other night. I'm gonna look it up very quickly for you.
All right.
He's not the best backup, but I like that you led off the Tampa Bay Lightning conversation with Brian Elliott. But nice segue. Please continue.
Lightning 20-11-4 record. He's the only part of the team that's pretty much bad.
7-2-0. Just saying.
Okay. My mistake. Sorry, Brian Elliott. My bad.
Hey, you're not wrong. 894 save, 3.31 goals against. Anyway, this is not the Brian Elliott take. Please continue with your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are not getting enough credit again this season.
Yeah, they're not. 20-11-4 record for 41 points on the season. 3rd in the Atlantic Division. Look, it is. We have definitely been sweeping the Lightning under the rug like a lot of other people, but for good reason when you take into the perspective of Jason Robertson, Tage Thompson, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Kaprizov. But looking at this right now, Kucherov, 49 points. Stamkos, 38 points. Braden Point, 32 points. Sergachev, 28. Hagel, 26. The list continues on and on. The only bad player who's been a bust so far this season has been Victor Hedman. The guy's a ghost right now. Definitely hurts anyone who drafted him in the 2nd, 1st, or 3rd round, wherever you got him. If you drafted him after that, I think it's actually a steal. But nonetheless, 17 points for Victor Hedman has not been good enough.
No, 1 goal as well. I know he's not a goal-scoring machine. It's just after what you saw from him over the last couple of seasons, so many players or so many fantasy guys are high on this player, and for good reason. Up until the last couple of weeks too, Steele, Andrei Vasilevsky could have been a potential bust as well, but he's turned it around in a big time. He was letting in a lot of muffins. I know you were hard on that guy's case, and for good reason. But what's interesting here and what I'm looking at, the odds so far for the teams up until this point, plus 30,000 for the Sabres, plus 30,000 for the Detroit Red Wings, plus 30,000 for the Ottawa Senators. now you start to get interesting. Tampa Bay Lightning at plus 1,100. Do I think they're going to catch the Boston Bruins? It's bold, but worth a 10 bet for sure because they aren't that far back and there's a lot of hockey to be played. I just like to add these odds in, Steele. You know I got to do it because you know we got to pay these bills, and we're going to talk about the top two teams because, Steele, they have been clearing away the toast so far of this division.
Yeah, and the fact that they've been able to continue to do this after playing the most amount of games the last 3 years, going back to back to back Stanley Cup finals.
Great
That's
point.
a lot of games for them as
Great
well.
point.
So, I think Pat Maroon or one of their veteran players said this the other day that they know that the window for winning championships is kind of closing on this team. They've been there for so long now. They're getting older as well. Maroon, Perry, Stamkos, all of those guys. They know that it's closing a little bit, maybe not as much as he thinks it is, but nonetheless, they're still great right now. Great hockey players. You can find a ton of value up and down the lineup wherever you look, especially at Hagel or Nick Paul. Killorn, maybe even when he jumps up
has
to the
stepped
top
out
line.
huge this year as well.
Sergachev
Some of the reason why Victor Hedman has taken a step back.
Yeah, exactly. Sergachev really stepped up his game in that playoff run last year, specifically starting in that first round against the Maple Leafs. So maybe that's where we should head to now.
Oh, nice little segue, my friend. Hey, I don't mind if you want to get right to it. Let's get right to it because obviously, for clear reasons, this is a team that we like to talk about sparingly. We try and come on here and keep it unbiased, but this is a team that is obviously near and dear to both of our hearts. Although you are going more Minnesota Wild these days, Steele, it's a bit concerning, but that's okay. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the way that they have played this season and the way that they have continued to get it done is something that is now starting to make me pay attention to not just the offensive side of the puck, which is what they've been doing for the last number of seasons. They are now committed to playing this defensive, stingy brand of hockey that is the kind that can get you past the first round, Steele. Does it matter until they get it done at the end of April and May? No, it does not. But they are now looking at, they're second in goals against per game. This is a team that's playing very good defensively, and they're getting really good goaltending. They have allowed the third least goals against this season overall. They have the 12th best power play, 15th best penalty kill, and I think that's where they can really tighten the screws and be elite. Really, really good. If not for the Boston Bruins in this division, Steele, this is the toast of the Atlantic Division. That is saying nothing to take away from what's going on in Boston, but I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan because they're playing a different brand of hockey, and this is one that can get you through the first round, and kudos to Sheldon Keefe for turning this ship around.
Yeah, and for me, this is the team, not trying to be biased at all. This is just legit NHL analyst perspective now. This is the team that I think wins the division, even though the Bruins are that good right now.
Okay.
Look, the Leafs have already been through their worst part of the season. End of October, early November. We knew that was going to happen. They always start off slow, but they pick things up around. And the fact that they're able to do this without majority of their defensemen right now has been superb. Look, I love the fact that Sheldon Keefe is able to be so creative and change things up on the regular. Putting 5 forwards on the power play is awesome to see. It's a big, bold move, but
he deserves some credit.
And it's working out phenomenally as well. This is obviously Mitch Marner's season, as good as Austin Matthews is. Marner is a beast right now, 40 points, leading the way. Nylander and Matthews at 39 points right behind him. It's just incredible to see. Matt Murray, he's working his way to my heart right now. He's working his way to my heart.
He's trying.
I'm not going to say I'm completely sold, but I love what I have seen from both him and from Murray and Samsonov. I'm definitely sprinkling some money on the Maple Leafs. I believe they're at plus 350 or around that. Plus 350 to win this division. Definitely going to be sprinkling some money on them. I think the Bruins at some point are going to go through a little bit of a lull. They've been too good up to this point. They might continue to be good for the next month, but at some point, things have to start coming back down to earth. And we're going to see a very close race for the top spot in the Atlantic Division.
You would have to think so, Steele, just by default of this can't be sustainable, but all credit due to the Boston Bruins. And before I get there, I have to talk just very quickly about my busts and who they would have been on the Toronto Maple Leafs if not for much better play over the last 2 weeks. Michael Bunting was heading for a big time disappointing
Yes.
season after what he had done last year. And I understand he gets to play with Matthews and the other pieces he does in the top six. But also him and Alexander Kerfoot have both been better. Both had two good under the radar seasons last year. Maybe not so much Bunting under the radar, but they have turned around. They would have been my bust, but the Toronto Maple Leafs have been so good over the last 6 weeks. It is really hard to pick a bust fantasy wise for them. And the same can be said for this Boston Bruins team.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come out and say right now, I have counted on this team's downfall a couple of times now over the past 6 or 7 years. I used to write for the Score. I used to put my opinion on the internet every single day in writing. Now I do it in video and audio. And I have said that the Boston Bruins are going to take a step back. The front office is solid. The scouting department is solid. Whoever they bring in behind the bench seems to be the right guy for this group at the time. Their blue line, when you look at it, you wouldn't think it can get it done. They get it done. They are so good defensively. And Linus Ullmark, this is almost the kind of thing, Steele, that makes me want to clean my glasses when I take a look at these statistics. 11, 1 and 1. 1.89 goals against and almost a 940. And I know I'm lining up with 937. This is ridiculous right now and almost out of nowhere. You also know I love me a 6'4" tall goalie. They are second in goals per game as well, offensively. Third best power play and the best penalty kill. Right now, this team should be the favorite for the Stanley Cup, and I believe they are.
Yeah.
If they continue to do this, this is not a team any other team wants a piece of in the playoffs because they are looking good from top to bottom.
Yeah, I believe they're minus 300 right now to win the Atlantic Division. Absolutely incredible season. The fact that they haven't lost a home game in regulation either.
Crazy.
At this point, we're in December and they haven't lost in regulation.
That
at
bothers
home.
me
Crazy.
so much, Steele. I don't even want to get into it as a
It's
Toronto
gonna
Maple
be
Leafs fan.
be nerve-wracking once it
Oh,
comes
I'm
to playoff
racked.
time for any team that goes into the Boston Bruins barn. It's gonna be scary.
Yeah, good point.
26 4-2 record for 54 points on the season, led by David Pastrnak, definitely the beast of the team. I could even throw Marchand up there as well. Maybe
Yeah.
even Hampus Lindholm, the way he played for the first 2 months.
Out of nowhere.
Marchand, 26 points in 24 games. Pastrnak, 45 points in 32 games. Absolute beast of this team. I literally can't find a bust on this team whatsoever. Maybe Jeremy Swayman, even though his record is still good. He's 7-3-1, but lately has not been playing great. He has an 898 save percentage, so not the best, but that's just nitpicking right now. But there's so much value up and down this lineup. Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, David Krejci, even though the peripheral stats aren't there, he's got 24 points. I love me some Jake DeBrusk this year. He's been absolutely solid. So the Boston Bruins are going to be a scary team.
The David Krejci ad, too, would have been one of those ones that I'm like, they're really fishing for something. And, 24 points is 24 points for a guy who didn't play in the NHL last season. This is seriously impressive stuff. And I'll leave my take with the Boston Bruins at this. One of the players that I've seen a very, very good year from that makes me think he might just find his game again, and I don't mean his MVP level type. Taylor Hall has looked very, very good, and I think the confidence that he's seen and that I've seen from him and what's going on in Boston, I would peg Taylor Hall for a very big second, quote unquote second half. I know we're not at the half, but the post Christmas break and on. I think Taylor Hall is going to continue to go off. And maybe if you can go out there and get him now, I know he still had a good season, but before he goes off, that would be one of the players on the Boston Bruins because you ain't getting Pastrnak, you ain't getting Marchand, and you're definitely not getting Bergeron off a GM for unless it's a very pretty price. Taylor Hall, though, get a piece of what's going on for the Boston Bruins. That's the Atlantic Division, Steele. That's all four. If you've missed any of the breakdowns, though, make sure you hit the YouTube channel. Check us out on Spotify and Apple Music. We have our podcast as well. We have all of the breakdowns for the entire NHL. It's a busy holiday season, Steele. We'll be here all week.
Yeah, it is a busy holiday season. Obviously, people spending time with their family and friends. So just want to thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, though, go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day instant reactions and the take of the day. You don't want to miss out on their podcast, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Hopefully you're enjoying your holiday season, Christmas, New Year's coming up. Thank you so much, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Happy holidays, everybody.